Hey guys, I'm Maria. This is Ryan, Henna, and Antra, and we're the Moonwalking Mannequins. So today we're going to be talking about interviews, and interviews are so important because everyone goes through interviews. You need an interview to get a job, and especially since we're college students, we are all looking for either part-time jobs, internships, full-time jobs. So yeah, everyone needs interviews.
All right, so let's go over an overview of the content of this presentation. So our first topic is resumes, which is an integral part before we even start the interview process. And one thing about interviews is that you are able to see yourself off the paper and what your personality is like and why you fit the company's values well. But you also need like a tangible formal document with all your skills, all your knowledge, and all the reasons why you are applicable candidate as well. A second topic we're going to go over is preparation, which is a big component of interviews and the prep you do for it beforehand. Because interviews can be very subjective, there is no strict guidelines on how an interview should go. It could be either a very strict formal setting where there's a panel of interviewers, or it could be just like a one-on-one thing in a coffee shop. So you just have to be prepared for anything that you face. Our third topic will be personal appearance. Unfortunately and fortunately, we do get judged on our first impressions, especially how we dress. So we want to look at our fashion choices and dress appropriately for the job interview we're going for. Next is time, which is our fourth topic. Arriving on time is a topic we've discussed in class and how it varies across a lot of cultures. So we're going to talk about what is an appropriate time to arrive, especially for job interviews. Our fifth topic is body language. Nonverbal communication is basically half the battle in any interview. So we'll be going over some adapters that you should avoid and body language that you should use to sound more confident. Next is public speaking, which is a very big topic. So we'll just be going over a few key components that you might not be aware of, like pitch, tone, volume, which maybe only music majors know. So we'll definitely just make the meanings and how, like what tips to use to improve your vocal skills. Lastly, we have online interviews. And since online meetings are a big part of this class as well, we decided to include this. And there's a lot of statistical trends that show that online interviews are becoming more popular. So we'll just be going over some online etiquette as to how you should present yourself in an online interview.
All right, so the first topic is resumes. Now, this is the beginning of the job process. Before you get the job, before the interview, you need to have a good resume so that your employer will be more inclined to hire you. So, how do you write a good resume? All of this information is from an article written by Crosby in 2009. There's the content that goes into it. That's your identification, all your personal information. So, your phone number, your email. You need your employment history, so your previous jobs, education and certification, where you went to school, special skills, anything special about you that your employer might find intriguing pertains to the job that you're looking for. References, your future employer might want to talk to your past employers and see how you did to see if they should give you the job. And then there's computer applications. Now, this is so important because technology is the future of the world. So employers really want to see on your resume that you know how to use Microsoft Word or Excel or anything like that. Another important part about resumes is the format. There's a few different types. First is chronological format, which focuses on the previous jobs you've had, the job titles. So that would be if you have jobs that are, if you've had worked in jobs that are similar to the one that you are looking for now. There's also the functional format, which focuses more on your skills, and that would be if you don't have like previous experience in the field that you're looking to get hired in. So that would focus more on your skills. And then there's a combination of both. Style is also really important. You want something that isn't too flashy. You don't want it to be too many, you don't want too many colors or script because then it's hard to read. You want something easy to read and attractive. And you want the background to be white or lightly colored at most. You don't want it to be blue because that's just hard on the eyes. You also want to make your headings stand out because you want to have like employment history, the word employment history should be in a bigger font than the actual employment history underneath. Another really important thing about resumes is the length. Now, this depends on a few factors. If you're a student or a recent graduate, it should be one page at most because you don't have a lot of experience and your employers They don't want to read a bunch of random stuff that does not matter. Other workers might want it to be 1 to 2 pages long. And if you're very experienced in your field, you can have it 2 to 3 pages long. Proofreading is so important when it comes to resumes. You don't want any errors because this is a professional document. So you want to have a lot of people proofread your resume and make sure everything's good. And you should also use like language found in the position description. So let's say you want to apply for a job at McDonald's as a cashier. You'll use the word cashier in your resume. But let's say, for example, okay, in my personal experience, I worked at Primark, and in Primark, they called the cashiers tills. So if you were applying for a job at Primark, you would use the word tills in your resume, and that would just show your employer that you have done your research on the job. Some statistics, and this is from Inc. magazine. 90% of respondents wouldn't hire someone who lied on their resume. It's so important not to lie in your resume because that's what your employers are hiring you for. They expect you to know this for when you get the job. So if you get the job and you don't know what you're doing, they're obviously going to know that you lied on your resume and you're going to be fired.
All right. So once you finish your resume and you've applied to all your jobs and you hear back from them, and if you get called in for an interview, now's the time to prepare. Preparation is honestly the key to your success here. And you have to, it first starts off with research. And this means you have to research everything. This includes the company. So research the ins and outs of the company, how the dynamics are, the management, because that is so important. It shows your interviewer that you actually care about the company and you actually are interested, unlike other applicants that you are going against. At the same time, you want to research the position and its skills that you applied for. Knowing the skills that you applied for is also really important. And when you research them, you'll come to know which skills that you have to brush up on. Because a lot of times questions that interviewers will ask will deal with skills. Like let's say, for example, you're applying for a coding position or comp sci position. Your employer might ask you certain hard skill questions about comp sci itself. So now's the time to brush up on those skills. You should also know your resume because a lot of the questions will come from past experiences. And knowing your past experiences properly and the details of it will put you at an edge and at an advantage compared to the other applicants. Last but certainly not least, you have to practice. Practice is actually the thing that ties everything together. And for example, you could practice in front of the mirror until you feel comfortable. The most important question that you should practice, that is the most common interview question, as stated in the Harvard Business Review, is the "Could you tell me about yourself" question. This is basically a summary of who you are, your skills and past experiences, and everything you want your employer to know right off the bat.
All right. Personal appearance. Personal appearance are everything in a job interview. It's your first impression to the interviewer. You want to give off a first good impression and not a bad first impression. Because if you have a bad first impression, then it'll inhibit the rest of your interview as it leaves a bad taste in your interviewer's mouth. So what kind of clothing should you wear? So 71% of hires wouldn't hire a person who missed the dress code memo. So there are three dress code memos. Very formal attire, so you want to wear a suit and tie and like a blazer, something like that. Semi-formal attire, which is like a polo shirt and khakis. And then the last one is a non-formal attire, which would be like a t-shirt and sweatpants. But a good rule of thumb is to wear a nice formal outfit, because it's better to be more formal than less formal, as you better be safe than sorry. If we look at these pictures here are the do's and the don'ts. Obviously, you want to dress nice and you don't want to dress not nice. We'll go more in depth on the next slide. All right, over here we have Antra, who looks very unkempt. You see she's wearing unformal shoes. She's wearing sweatpants and this sweater. Her hair is very unkempt. She does not look well prepared for this interview. She looks very informal, and she has this clothing that just screams, "Hey, I'm just a like regular person. I'm a very bummy person, right?" You want to not be like that. If we go to the next slide, we see Henna, where she has that swagger. She has this nice blazer, nice pants that matches the blazers, nice shoes. As you can see, her shirt under the blazer is very nice, right? It matches. And when she goes into the interviewer will see, hey, this person's dressed very nicely, very properly. She is very confident. She gives off a good first impression, unlike Antra. All right, I feel like these two are very important to say. These two quotes are taken from Inc. magazine. 80% of people would not hire a candidate with visibly bad hygiene. And basically, take a shower before your interview. Brush your teeth, put mouthwash in, put perfume on, put deodorant on, take every precaution to smell good and not smell bad for your interview. Because if the interviewer is like, "Oh, PU, this guy stinks," then that's a bad first impression. They don't want someone that stinks to be in their job, right? If you can't even take care of your hygiene, then how are you supposed to do your job? Another very important thing is 82% of prospective hires see tattoos as totally acceptable. I know a lot of us have tattoos, especially in these days, and people have this stigma against tattoos. There's this perceived stigma against tattoos. Oh, tattoos are bad, they're too edgy. But it's good to know that 8 out of 10 hires see the tattoos as not bad, and it shouldn't inhibit you. But just to be safe, you should always just cover them up just in case. Better be safe than sorry. All right. Another very important thing is timing. Timing is everything as it gets you to the place on time. And this also adds to that first impression. If you're there late, it gives a bad first impression. So what is too early and what is too late? So over here we have the model based on T.H. Mackin's study in 1994. And basically the study talks about this perceived control over time. And to have this perceived control over time, there's three things you have to have. Goal setting and priorities. So basically you want to get this job, right? You want to get this money, you want to have a well balanced future, right? So that's your goal. So you already have that right off the bat. Time management mechanics. So you want to have good time management. So you want to set alarms, you want to tell your parents or siblings to wake you up. You want to take every precaution to make sure you wake up on time for the interview. And then there's preference to organization. When you wake up, you don't want to be unorganized. You want to be as organized as possible. So you want to have your clothes ready beforehand. You want to have your car to have gas in it. You don't want to make your car break down in the middle of the road, right? So you have to make sure your car is ready. You have to be prepared for your interview, right? And if you have all these three steps down, then you have this perceived control over time. And that's good because then first off, it gives you psychological well-being. So you'll be less stressed during the interview. You'll have less nervous tendencies over the interview. So you'll be very confident when you go into the interview, or at least less stressed when you go to the interview. And then the most important part, it gives you job satisfaction. You'll be satisfied with your job. When you go in, the interviewer will say, "Oh, this guy is here on time or early. He cares about the job." So you'll be satisfied with your output, and you'll be satisfied because you got the job, or hopefully get the job. And why shouldn't you be late? Over here, we have another quote from Inc. magazine saying 53% of respondents said that they'd still hire a candidate who was late or who had to reschedule. This isn't to say hiring managers love to be inconvenienced. The fact that 47% of interviewers would give you the boot is worth a pause. It's very important to not be late for your interview, as yes, it's a 50-50 chance to get that job or not, but you don't want you to get a job to be like a coin flip, right? So be early for your interview. Be like 15 to 20 minutes early. But don't be too early. You don't want to be like, if your interview is at 8 p.m., you don't want to get there at 6 a.m. because it shows you that you're desperate, or even worse, it shows that you don't know when to get the job. So be there 20 minutes early before your interview.
All right, so body language is so important because it's the first time that your interviewers is seeing you, and that's the first image, the first impression that you're making. It's so important. So why is body language important, and how do you make a good first impression? So first, some statistics. Psychological studies have shown that stress impacts expressions in speech, posture, facial expressions, sociology, postural control, and self-report. So, how do you present yourself in an interview? One of the most important things about your body language is your eye contact, because when you're making eye contact with your interviewer, you're showing that you are interested and that you are being attentive to what they're saying. Another really important thing is posture. You should keep your back straight, don't slouch. This shows that you're confident. You don't want to show yourself off as nervous. And so that takes me to my last point, adapters. So adapters are a person's nervous tendencies, and I have it in red here because it's something that you want to avoid. Some examples of adapters would be twirling your hair or tapping your foot. So you should just be aware of them. Don't try not to fidget. And because you want to show yourself off as confident to your future employer so that they'll be more inclined to hire you.
I think we all know how important it is to speak well and with certainty during any setting, no matter if it is a job interview or not. But especially for job interviews, we want to look at some tips on how to improve your skills so you sound more confident. So let's first look at volume, which is the loudness of voice, and it is used to emphasize points and create an engaging setting. So you just want to make sure that you're loud enough that it is comfortable to hear you, but not too quiet that you might sound like not confident in what you're saying or you might be lying. And a tip would be to analyze the distance you are with the interviewer when you get there and maybe speak louder if they are far away and adjust your setting like that. Next would be enunciation, which is the pronouncing of words clearly and concisely so the interviewer can accurately understand your responses. So this also ties into slurring of words and pace. So if you're speaking too quickly, you might drop the end syllables and maybe combine them with the other words. And this might make you harder to understand for the interviewer. So just try to make sure you pace yourself and finish all the words concisely. Another could be slang words that the interviewer might not be sure what you're saying. So make sure you just avoid those. And if you have an accent, that's all right. Just make sure you speak concisely and slowly so they are able to understand you. A tip would be to do tongue twisters and breathing exercises. Next would be pitch, which is the highness or lowness of tone to bring emotion into your words. We'll look at low pitch versus high. So a low indicates seriousness and authority, while a high explains excitement and curiosity. So using these makes you more animated while you're speaking to an interviewer, which makes you look more engaged and passionate about the job you're getting hired for. So make sure you're just like not monotone and use this variation of highness and lowness to make sure you keep your interviewer engaged. A quote to tie all of this in is because it all relates back to how confident you sound as a candidate. So this is a quote from the book The Joy of Science by Jim Al-Khalili, who talks about a lot of science communication and how it pertains to your everyday life. So it says, from the world of politics, wherein if you dither or show any hint of uncertainty in your arguments, this is interpreted as a sign of weakness. Voters can even regard certainty as a strength in their politicians. So it is basically saying that you definitely need to be confident in whatever you're saying and stick to your opinion, even if you're not sure or you might think you're wrong, just stick to it. Be confident about it, and it will definitely gain you support from the interviewers.
After the COVID-19 pandemic, everything turned online, and this includes interviews. So just to see how relevant it is in today's society, 93% of employers plan to continue using virtual interviews in the future, and 82% of employers now use virtual interviews. And this is all from the large job application website called Indeed. So because it's so relevant, it's so important to make sure that you know how to act, especially because it's so much harder to present yourself online than in person. Because in person, employers can see your different like nonverbal communication and cues. So you have to go the extra mile now that you're on Zoom or WebEx taking an interview. So first and foremost, you need to make sure that there's no background noise because that's just distracting. Second of all, you need to make sure that there's lighting. Your interviewer needs to see how you look, obviously, just to like, have some conversation. And lastly, you have to have a clean room because if you don't have a clean room, it just shows that you're not neat and therefore you're not organized. And that's all about the physical environment. Next, you have to also dress professionally. Just because you're at home does not mean you could dress up in your pajamas. You need to still dress up in a suit and look nice because that just shows, again, your first impression. Next, you shouldn't have anything on your desk because again, that just shows you're unorganized. Make sure you also frame yourself in the camera. We don't want to see the wall or the ceiling fan because again, that's not showing you. Lastly, no distractions. This is an example of Maria taking an interview, and you can see how, oh, there's a dog in the back. That's not good. And now again, this is Maria, another Zoom meeting, and this is good because her background is blurred. So compared to the dog, this is much better because the background is blurred, there's no distractions. Now, this is Ryan during his online interview. This isn't good because he's on the bed. He's slouching in this one. It's just not good. And his face is not in the frame when this one. His legs are on the desk, which is also not good. It just shows very informal. He's too close to the camera, which is a little creepy, yeah. But see, all this is just very informal. It's not good for the interview. But now this, on the other hand, his desk is clean. There's everything showing properly, and he's in the frame.
All right. So, takeaways. What should you take away from this interview slideshow? So, first off, resumes. You know how to make this resume now. Now you can submit it in, and that's what gets you out there. There's also prep talking and talking on the spot. Know what to say and know what questions you're going to be given because you're going to be asked them and you need to know what to say. Personal appearance. Personal appearance is your first impression with the interviewer. You have to give off a good first impression. Timing. You have to be there on time because if you're not, then you're going to miss the interview and you don't want that. Body language. You have to have good body language because if you're confident, that's good. If you're not confident with your body language, that's horrible and it'll leave this bad taste in your interviewer's mouth. public speaking. You need to know how to talk to your interviewer, because if you don't know how to talk, then why are you having an interview? You need to practice to talk. And then there's online interviews. Take all we just said, put that in an online setting. There's something that are different. There's something that are the same. So you need to keep that in mind.
All right, so here we have a Kahoot to test your knowledge of everything that we've talked about here, and we hope you guys enjoy it. And these are our sources. And thank you for watching. Bye.